Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. We are coming to you on Tuesday night, September 26th. We are inching very close to the start of training camp because by the time you're listening to this, the chances are the Mavericks have already held their first practice. How are we doing, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, that's crazy. Media Day is tomorrow. Media Day is not till the end of the week, right? And then training camp starts. I can't remember. I'm off to a thrilling start, but I know training camp starts for them tomorrow.
That's right. We're going to give Josh just a second to check his audio input because it sounds he is broadcasting from the Batcave, but that's okay. This is we're not. See, this is what training camp is for. Training camp is for working through the kinks and figuring out the elements that we have to.
Is that better?
That's a lot better.
It's altered to my webcam.
I don't
know why.
All right. It happens.
We're good.
It happens. Yeah. So training camp tomorrow, media day Friday, practices, and then these guys head overseas to play some basketball. Looks like all the Mavericks have been in town. Like Luka was at Texas Motor Speedway, and all the photos were pretty amusing because Grant Williams is still in his like shaking hands and kissing babies phase of his new Mavs fandom of being on the team, whereas Luka's got sunglasses and he's like, all right, I'm here. Hello. Just that sort of stuff cracks me up. Gosh. It's been some new. We've actually got real things to talk about, which is nice. We made it to the very end of the stretch run without, we didn't have to get too weird. We didn't have to, maybe next summer we'll dip into kind of the more random items, but we're here and I'm looking forward to talking actual Mavs stuff. So where do you think we should start tonight?
Why don't we start with the Jason Kidd interview first. Let's start with like the fun stuff first, and then maybe we'll go to the other news that's not as fun. Jason Kidd on Saturday on local DFW sports radio station 97.1 The Freak. Mark Stein does a weekly Saturday kind of just radio show. He just kind of
he talks some basketball, some soccer. He kind of talks about whatever he wants to for an hour.
There's no set format. He gets to it's whatever Mark Stein is thinking about. That's what he talks about. So the nice part about it is he's obviously well connected with the Mavericks, as most of y'all know. So he had Jason Kidd on as a guest for last Saturday's show. And the one thing I will say for Jason Kidd is even if he says stuff that drives either me, you, or fans up a wall, he does at least say stuff that like
it's interesting.
We can talk about. Yeah. He does not go right into the kind of boilerplate coach speak cliche that you kind of learn nothing from. Now, whether he's being truthful or not is another thing altogether. But at least the content of what he says, there's at least some meat on the bone to pick at. And the big thing that came from this interview was he said that, Derek Lively and Omax Prosper, the Mavericks' 2 first-round picks from the 2023 NBA draft, are going to get a shot at being legitimate rotation players. For Lively, he said the starting center spot is up for grabs. Literally, quote, "It's up for grabs." Said Lively has a chance to earn it. And then, of course, kind of hinted that Prosper could earn the other spot. There are basically 2 starting spots that are kind of open for competition, it sounded like, from what Kidd was saying. The locked-in starters, of course, Kyrie, Luka, and then Grant Williams. So he didn't necessarily say it was going to be a lock. I think there might have been a little confusion because he said they're going to start training camp and maybe start the first preseason game. Prosper and Lively are. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the starters on opening day. He just hinted at that, like, he wants to see those 2 play with the 3 locked-in starters. He kind of wants to throw them in the deep end of the pool, so to speak, see how they react. And he hinted at that they're going to be a big part of the team, whether they're starting or not. So I think that's a big thing, because I think we've talked about ad nauseum since the draft that for this Mavericks team to go to the places they want to go, whether that's this season or next season or the season after that, these 2 players have to work. Like these draft picks have to be successful NBA players for them to kind of accomplish, I think, their both short-term and long-term goals. So it was fun to see him talk about that. Now, who knows if how truthful he's being about it, but hey, we can only go with what he's saying.
Yeah, and I think for a pair of, I would say I'm a pessimist and you're more of a pragmatist. This is as nice of preseason quote as you can really get. I mean, the joke when Carlisle was in charge is the last nice thing he would say would be on media day, because he would be open and smiling and happy, and then he would become Rick the Prick like pretty immediately thereafter. Kidd is just kind of always talking now, whether he's taking responsibility or saying things and, acting like he's a bystander is kind of a different deal. One of my Bucks fans friends, absolutely rained on my parade because I was very happy about this. I was like, and I continue to be very happy about this because even if it's lip service, it's lip service in attention to something that I want to believe in. And I'm going to be in the preseason. I'm going to be in the kind of hopeful mindset until I'm not, until reality hits. I'm just cute. But one of my Bucks fans friends said, this is just setting up Jason Kidd's annual November discussion on how you can't win with youth in the NBA. Which is something he did do with the Bucks at least 2 seasons in a row.
He did with the Mavs. He did with the
Mavs with an old team. That's right. Yeah. That was the most fun. But I gotta say, I just keep circling back. We talked about this last week. We're going to talk about this ad nauseum. There's youth, and then there's youth that Jason Kidd had a role in selecting, because you just have to believe that he did. And I really think that both of these guys bring to the table what he wants out of a set of role players. And, it is ridiculous, to kind of talk about the Josh Howard of it all like we did last week. But I remain really high on Omax. My Lively feelings are a little more mixed just because big men have a harder job, like they have a more diverse set of responsibilities that cause kind of cascades and defensive issues. But I like Lively. I do. I wasn't super in on the pick at the time. I was kind of frustrated, but I've come around on it, and that's sort of at this point I'm choosing. There's a choice involved in all this. I'm choosing to say, okay, this will be fun. Let's go with this and let's see where it takes us.
Yeah, Lively, presumably it's going to be tougher. One, he's he just didn't play a lot in college compared to a lot of guys that come out. Like, it took him a while to gain steam, and he did finish his freshman season strong, but he wasn't a big minute guy that last year at Duke. So that works against him compared to other guys entering the league at his age. And then the other thing is of course, like you basically just said, big men take longer to develop because they have more responsibility. They're basically like the quarterback of the defense. They're the back line. They're calling out rotations. They have to know the rotations themselves. for a wing like Prosper, his offensive responsibility is going to be next to nothing. He's going to be stand in a corner, shoot, let Luka create for you. And then defensively, you can play him next to a Josh Green, or you can play him next to a Grant Williams, and you don't have to assign him the most,
Well, what did he do in college?
task.
Remember some of the fun stats that you threw out in college that really indicated how much of like a absolute tunnel vision defender he was, like where it's like he was assigned to guard a guy and quite literally shut that guy down. That was his whole, he was a shutdown corner, but at forward.
Yeah, because he didn't have any blocks or steals because he wasn't really rotating off the ball a lot because they, like you said, he was face guarding a lot of like the other team's best players. So yeah, we'll see how that, he's going to have an easier time because his responsibility is going to be different than what they're going to ask of Lively. So it makes sense that maybe Prosper is the one that sees more minutes, but I mean, we'll see what happens. The big thing is for both of them is they don't have a lot of blockers in their path.
Yeah.
Look at the Mavericks big man rotation. I obviously like some of the things Dwight Powell does, but he is in no way, shape, or form a guy that's going to impede his progress if he is playing well. He's not going to be a kind of guy that I think Kidd is going to play just because of the veteranness if Lively does show something. And the same with Prosper. You look at the wing depth. It's, Grant is going to, you can play two wings at least once. So Grant's going to be on the floor. So that's not going to block him. But Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., there's not a lot of other defensive minded forwards on the roster besides maybe Derek Jones Jr., maybe Dante Exum if he plays up a spot. But again, there's not there aren't entrenched, established starters, veteran starters that are blocking these two guys from potentially getting more minutes if they earn them and deserve them, which will be what we have to see happens.
Yeah, it's funny. I went on my friend's show, the Hardwood Knocks podcast, and talked.
That was fun. You did a good job.
I don't even remember what I said, but I irritated some people when I basically, and I still hold to this. I think casting Josh Green as a forward stopper is not fair to Josh because he's not big enough. And I just see Josh as the third guard at this point. And I know a lot of fans feel differently. Oh, we could run him in a 3-guard lineup. Okay, but then you're admitting to me that he's a guard. So I don't, when I say that I think I see Omax starting at the 3 or maybe the 4, that's him and Grant Williams being kind of interchangeable with somebody else playing the 5 and with Kyrie and Luka. Now that might not happen. That's just what I'm interested in seeing. I do think that we have the fun issue, and Kidd's going to get to figure this out, the fun issue of what lineups work. Because last year they locked themselves into the fucking McGee thing, and then they had to stick with it. They're not married to anything at this point. You got Luka, you got Kyrie, and I think it's safe for Kidd to sort of say, I have all options at my disposal. And I think that's really wise because we don't know how this stuff is actually going to work. We know what we want to see, but this is it harkens back to what we've been calling for multiple years, that, hey, the Mavericks have enough new stuff to where we can't reasonably predict what they're going to do. And that's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun compared to the last couple of years. Yeah, I mean, really, Kyrie, Luka, and Grant are the only locks in terms of what we think their roles are going to be for the rest of the season, really. They're the only locked-in starters. Kidd, I don't know how big of – I know that Josh Green has developed well under Kidd these last 2 years, but as we've seen, Kidd played Justin Holiday over Green very quickly. So that doesn't necessarily – I hated it too, but I think it gives a credence to I think the guys on this roster that Kidd didn't have a hand in putting on this roster, he is not married to. So your Greens, your THJs, your Dwights, your Maxis, we saw it even he played Dorian he played Dorian less minutes in certain situations that Carlisle never would have. Carlisle rode Dorian as long as he could. And I remember the first season with Kidd, he would sit Dorian for some stretches if he wasn't playing well. That necessarily wouldn't happen before. So I think basically any of the guys that Kidd didn't have a hand in giving his input and putting on the roster, there's a lot of fluidity there. And
I think that's true.
So, and like you said, none of the guys they brought in besides Grant, which is he's going to be the starter, but They didn't do a McGee, like they haven't promised, like all the veterans they brought in are on short, like Exum, Derek Jones, Seth Curry, all the veterans besides Grant, those are not like promising big role contracts. Like they're all either minimum deals or Seth was close to a minimum deal. So like they aren't financially obligated to also like give these guys a role like they kind of did with JaVale McGee, where they had to tell him, hey, if you come to Dallas, we'll start you. Like, don't go to Milwaukee to be a backup. Like, there's none of that going on. So I think there's going to be a lot more flexibility early on with his lineups.
And I need to clarify something. I'm reading in the comments, and I have a feeling I just must not be explaining myself correctly. I don't think that Josh Green should be the Mavericks' primary wing defender. If you think he should be, as our friend Luke in the chat says, the Australian coach disagrees with you, Kirk. Josh is one of the best point of defense defenders in the league. And if you're talking about the ball, so like your Damian Lillards of the world, sure. Bigger guys, Paul George, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. Josh Green cannot guard. Luka Doncic, World Cup. I'm sorry, he can't do it. I don't think it's fair. He is 6'4". He is 200 pounds. He is not 240 and 6'8" like LeBron. It's different. And granted, if you want to steal some minutes, I think you can. But that's why I like Omax and Grant, because those guys are stouter in different ways. So it's a minor thing, and I think I must be not explaining myself correctly, because I'm really excited about the optionality that they have.
So my devil's advocate would be, let's say, so it's Kyrie, Luka, Prosper, Grant, and insert big man here.
Center, right.
Who is guarding point guards in that lineup?
I mean, I think Kyrie's a better defender than we give him credit for when he tries.
Okay. So you would rather have Kyrie potentially guarding other teams' point guards, but have Prosper out there compared to, if you have Green if you start Green instead of Prosper, Green can be your point guard defender,
And that's where it gets into the fun discussions, because you're just going to have to see it. I could be dead wrong.
Yeah, you have to see it.
I just don't love the idea of Luka, Kyrie, Josh, and putting trying to hide Luka to an extent. Like Luka needs to learn to be a functional defender, and you have to stop treating him like he's the special guy who gets these privileges. Like he needs to just defend. But again, like last year we came into this, and there's all this talking ourselves into certain players. There's not that with this lineup. We're saying which is the best option. That's kind of cool. So it's like if Josh Green is the third option and comes in and can actually lock somebody down one night, that's really exciting. Yeah, Leo says, why can't we make Luka guard threes? Because they don't want him to get in foul trouble. That's part of the answer. But again, it's like some of this is if Luka defends better, it eases the tension elsewhere. And we're going to talk about that as the offseason goes on, because it's important.
Yeah. Something that's interesting also before we veer off, if Green does start, I think some of the things that happened last season after the trade that kind of sunk the team was, again, they just didn't have enough size, not just big man size, just size from 1 through 4. Because Luka was quite often the second biggest player on the floor. Mm-hmm. If you start Green, like Kyrie, Luka, Green, Grant, big man, like Luka is once again the second, because Grant is, he can guard up, obviously, but he is not shorter.
Grant is stout. Grant is a fire hydrant.
He is wide, not long.
My favorite was our friend Nick Angstad being kind of curious about this photo of Grant Williams and Tim Hardaway at the Wings game,
than him,
where Tim was taller than him, and it's like, that's a thing. But Grant is built like a defensive end, so there's different strengths with that.
So I can understand if you put Prosper in the starting lineup instead of Green,
that's where my head is.
Luka is not the second tallest guy on the floor.
Well, granted, this probably doesn't happen until like game 30.
No, I know.
But I love it. This is what I like, because it's just and we all know the guys are going to be built in and missing some time. There's some just really fun elements involved.
How cool is it to talk about it's nice to be able can they slide in Prosper, a first round 20-year-old or 21-year-old guy, instead of talking about like Theo or Frank. It's so much refreshing to be talking about mixing in these guys and what they were trying to do a season ago.
So anyway, and I'm going to get picked apart for that, because there's a lot of folks that are really invested in Josh Green. I honestly don't mind that, because I think everybody's going to get an equal chance to do something. I really, there's nobody for Kidd to railroad Josh Green with this year. Like that's going to be nice. I mean, we haven't even mentioned some of the other players who have an option. We're going to get to that because we're going to be talking player previews. But we somehow spent 20 minutes talking about this, which is fantastic, instead of the next piece of news, which we just kind of got to address. And it's yeah. So do you want to go with it?
Yeah. So it first started. I mean, it really kind of first started when the Mavericks released their training camp roster, which is not just like player roster, but also like coaching staff, like their staff. I wasn't the only one to notice this. Mavs Film Room noticed it earlier in the day than I did. I wasn't online that day. I didn't see it. So I wasn't unique in noticing this. But when I looked at it, it didn't, under the staff, it did not have Casey Smith, the Mavericks' longtime head athletic trainer, who in the last, since 2019, got promoted to director of player health and development. But he was still, even despite that promotion, like he was on the bench, like on the front row of the bench, not like where the assistant coaches like Daryl Armstrong behind Kidd. Like he was on the front end of the bench. He was very much involved in the day-to-day things that, despite the fact that he was no longer the quote unquote head athletic trainer. He's been with the Mavericks for years and years and years. Honestly, as long as I can remember, since
I really don't remember a time.
Mm-hmm. He's been credited as being one of the best athletic trainers in the NBA. He was an athletic trainer of Team USA men's basketball for like 8 years, something like that, like 2004 to 2012. So he's very, very, very highly regarded. And honestly, you think about the Mavericks in the last, since he's been here, they've been pretty good about, one, managing injuries, and two, avoiding players that have an injury history. I remember beating my head against the wall when the Mavericks signed Harrison Barnes instead of Chandler Parsons, I think back in 2016. And it was obvious his knees were shot, and, Smith has that kind of influence. He worked very closely with Rick and Donnie and Cuban. He was like part of their trust tree, whatever you want to call it, decision-making group. So he was very much involved. And so then I noticed he's not on it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's because he's not the head athletic trainer anymore. Let me look at last year's. He was on it last year as the director. So it wasn't just a case of he got a promotion. That's fishy. The Mavericks are very cagey about
as all teams personnel.
Are. Yeah.
A lot of teams are.
Yeah. The Mavericks never officially announced that Haralabob was like an employee. Like they just don't. They don't talk about that stuff. And like you said, other teams don't do it too. So then finally, we kind of sniffed around asking people that we thought would know. And then Tim McMahon and ESPN's Tim McMahon, and then the Athletics' Tim Cato, our former boss, basically both reported that Smith is being kind of reassigned in his role. His role is being reduced. According to Cato, the Mavericks.
Cato is very, I love me some Timmy. He wrote that whole second paragraph of the article in delightful passive voice in an attempt to, my read between the lines is, he is with the team because he is under contract. He is no longer with the team.
Yeah. I'm going to read it right here. Cato, in his reported piece on The Athletic, in August, Smith was informed by Mavericks general manager Nico Harrison that his role would be changed to a broader focus with reduced involvement in the team's day-to-day operations, according to team and league sources. That change means Smith would no longer sit on the team's bench, appear in the locker room during games, and not travel with the team on the road. And then no one on the team went on the record. These conversations haven't happened in terms of his role next season, but that kind of just feels like yada yada. We kind of see the writing on the wall. So because there were some people that when McMahon first tweeted it were like, oh, well, maybe Smith is like voluntarily like retiring, like maybe he wants to retire or he wants to take a step back. One, Smith is not an old man. He is not near retirement age.
He's not,
and two, people don't usually willingly take demotions. That's not how it works. So he was told that he was getting basically, he still holds the title, but obviously his duties have been demoted a bit. We don't know any more than that. There's obviously probably some more to come out with this story because it sounds like his relationship with the team is for all intents and purposes over. They're just kind of, like you said, we've worked in the corporate world long enough to know when someone is a part of the org or not. Sounds like they're writing out his contract.
Right.
Which, and again, it's a weird story. So I'm rambling about it now, but there was such a pushback when this first started whispering like, oh, everything's
we heard
fine.
about it. Let's be clear. I heard about this in July.
Yeah.
Like this was something that I first got told and was like, huh. And it's like, we don't really break news at Mavs Moneyball because I have there's no incentive. Like being wrong is the only actual incentive, and I don't want to be wrong. So I'd just rather keep shit to myself. And which, imagine me with my mouth, but it's the thing that I've been thinking about is me reflexively, almost everything the Mavericks have done for years is my reflexive indication is just like this fucking guy, once again, the Mavericks did something. And I'm just like, and then the more I think about it, I'm like, what other team have I ever cared about the trainer ever? I don't, I don't care. And so, the machinations of what goes on in all this is frankly, it's not beneath us, but as team fans, we ultimately shouldn't care. I want Nico Harrison to be able to build the team and the structure that he wants. And it really sounds like that he wants more of a structure, according to Tim's article. I think that's good.
Also, new regimes wanting to bring in their own guys is the most normal thing in not the NBA, professional sports. Like we were talking about this in Slack, and I think the reason why this looks so like, oh no, the Mavericks screwed up. What's going on?
Yeah.
Is because the Mavericks never have regime changes because Cuban never fired anyone for 20 years.
Whereas realistically, this happens all the time.
Yes, all the time. Teams go through regime changes. They bring in new faces. Doesn't necessarily mean Smith did something wrong or there's bad blood. Of course, more reporting can come out later that disputes that. But as of right now, this is normal. It's just not normal for the Mavericks, which is why it seems weird. But really, it's not. It's not weird. It's not weird.
And so we just wanted to briefly mention it because it was Mavericks news. And sort of for once in my life, admit that like my initial reaction was completely wrong because ultimately I don't care. I want to watch the basketball. I want the basketball to be good. Now, we don't really know his role, and I don't know this. I just wish sometimes you could say, all right, we're parting ways. Like the whole PR element of it. You see this in the corporate world all the time where it's like, he's going to like the Chicago Bears assistant coach, who by all accounts is like, who is under some like really like ghastly charges. He resigned from the team to go spend more time with his family. Enough with the euphemisms. It's okay for people to go find new jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
so yeah.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take care of some business real quick, and we just because we have to. So I need to go find this in my I need to go find my actual. I have some a document that I have to pay attention to here. Give me just a second here. So as you guys know, part of the thing here at Mavs Moneyball and with the Blue Wire Network is we will have sponsors. And hopefully during the year, we're going to be having more live reads because that means the opportunity for Josh and I to make a little more money, which I know is not of the biggest importance to you, but we do, like to be lightly compensated for our work here. I got strong-armed earlier in this summer into downloading the NBA 2K mobile game. Playing mobile games is something I've avoided because I don't have time for more addictions. And I'll tell you guys, I just got to say, I really like this game. It's ridiculously fun, great graphics, lots going on. You can build, you can build teams out of cards. You can play in multiplayer events. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do in this thing. And, it's a free mobile game, which is really cool. And, basketball season's on us. And I think it's a great idea for people who are just looking to kill a little more time and not doom scroll on Twitter. I really enjoy the card collection and seeing what players I can go out and find. And it's also really interesting to just kind of scroll through the different features and things that they're constantly adding because there's events and things like that. This is a game for hardcore basketball fans. That's the other part. I don't play 2K anymore on my Xbox because I get too angry, but this is a light middle ground. and I've really had fun playing with it. I think it's something everybody should give a shot to, and go ahead and download this. If you would like to go ahead and download NBA 2K Mobile free on the App Store and Google Play, it'd be great if you could use my promo code Tatum2K Mobile to redeem an exclusive Jason Tatum Pearl tier card. That's code TATUM2KMOBILE. I like doing ad reads. I could really sell. It's I want to get if we ever get like different sponsors, I just love pitching. It's weird. We're gonna take another break here and cut to our podcast ads. If you guys could hold on just for a second and do me a favor and actually listen to those, because they help us as well.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy and streamlined, so I can spend more time on the rest of my business. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
All right, we're back. Thanks for hanging out. If you could do me a favor and consider subscribing to our show. You go down there, hit the subscribe button. If you hit it again for notifications, you'll get hit up when we go live, which we do a lot during the course of the season. Josh and I don't talk as much during the summer because we talk to each other all the time during the season. If you could also consider liking the stream as we're up live, that actually really helps in terms of getting in front of other people who are searching for Mavericks related content. I very much appreciate y'all's support. We're inching closer to 2,000 subs. I have kind of an obscure goal of 5,000 subs for the season, so we'll see how we can do there, and we'll see what is going on in that regard. What players did I want to talk about? I had this listed out, and now I can't find my list. That's how you really know that we're actually very, very good at this. Let me see here. We have. I wanted to start. Let's start talking about Maxi Kleber. Does that work?
That works.
What in the world are your expectations for Maxi Kleber in the year 2023? I feel like he has been a Maverick since time began.
Well, he was a Maverick when Harrison Barnes was a Maverick, if that makes it feel like it was
the before times.
Yeah. I think his first season was 2017, 2018. So it has been a very, very long time. I think after the last few seasons, I think, somewhere around 2020, 2018, 2019, that range, I think there was some legitimate hope that he was going to be a really high level potential starter, maybe like all defense kind of guy, because his career, his first 3 years in the league, his block rate was absurd. He was very bouncy.
Really, like shockingly bouncy.
Yeah. Like you go if you can find some rookie Maxi Kleber highlights, I'm sure they exist somewhere on YouTube. He has some really good dunks. His rookie season, I remember covering a couple games in person and being like kind of shocked because he really came out of nowhere. I mean, there was no fanfare behind his signing. He wasn't a very productive.
We're like, who the hell is
Euro
this
player.
guy? Like, it seemed like one of those add-on signings at training camp where it's like,
Yes.
here's a body.
Yes, exactly. It felt like that. And then he just kind of, every time he got on the floor, just a little bit more, and kind of showed his worth. I think now, after the last few seasons, that expectation for him, I think, is gone. Like that idea that he is the defensive anchor, like the Mavericks version of a Draymond. Like they're like,
Right.
not to say that he's not going to still be important defensively, but this idea that it kind of all rests on his shoulders. I think we've taken a step back from that because we've seen he's just a little bit more limited than I think people were hoping after his first few years in the league. And of course, injuries have not helped at all. I think they've zapped his athleticism a lot. Having a hamstring surgery, he's had some bumps and bruises with his lower body. I don't think he has the same bounce that he had, say, 3 or 4 years ago. But still should be a productive player. I think the big thing is the Mavericks finally acquired a player that can maybe take some of the load off of him with Grant Williams, who kind of feels like a Maxi Kleber like upgrade. Like they're almost like the same type of player in terms of
things
how
you
the
want
Mavericks,
out of them.
Yeah, switching defensive forward / centers that can space the floor, that are athletic. You know, with Grant, that means Maxi doesn't have to play a ton of minutes. I think that's the big thing. The last couple of years he's been under. He was at 24 2 seasons ago, 25 last season minutes per game. And he needs to play around that or less. Otherwise, I think, you run the risk of him wearing out his engine, so to speak. So, but they've needed him because there's no one else on the roster that can do any of the things that he can do. So now that Grant is on the team, you can even say Derrick Jones Jr., even see what Omax Prosper gives you. The Mavericks finally have a couple of wings that can replicate what Maxi can do at the peak of his powers so that you don't necessarily have to run Maxi into the ground for an entire regular season. So hopefully less is more with Maxi, I think would be the idea for this season. Keep him sturdy, get him to the playoffs if they can make the playoffs, and then see where you go from there.
So just to clarify something, because Cowboy in the chat says if Maxi can't defend, what is his upside or his strengths? He can defend. He can't be expected to guard the rim anymore because, like, my shout out to Mike Bibbins of one half of the Outsiders podcast. He used to have a hilarious bit called like the Würzburg Wall, where anytime Maxi would like block somebody, he would add their name to the list. Like, Maxi used to be incredibly like athletic and remember when he challenged Kawhi Leonard at the rim and got dunked on mercilessly in the playoffs I think it was the bubble against the Clippers. Like that's the sort of stuff he was physically capable of. He just can't do it anymore, and that's okay. The life comes at you fast, and I think like Dirk has really warped our expectations for tall white German dudes and how well they can play into their 30s. And I'm excited to hope that the less is more approach works with him. The one thing he has to be willing and able to do is take the shots that he's given on an offensive. That was the thing that really bit him in elements over the last 2 seasons. Folks go ahead. Well, everybody like Skin Wade there's one weird post-game segment right before Maxi got hurt where he's like, where's everybody who was hating on Maxi? And it's like Maxi in 22 was so horrendous shooting the ball in March that in one playoff game, he hit more threes than he had the entire month prior. Like Maxi he's a streaky guy. And when he hits a dip, he's awful. And he's almost unplayable. And it's well, at least on the offensive end. Yeah. And so I'm hopeful that more legs, more opportunity. It's just a little less is more approach where if they need him in big games, he can play more, but he's not expected to play however many minutes that they've been playing him night after night.
Yeah, he's kind of the mascot for the Mavericks kind of limited roster they've had over the last few years in terms of like he has no offensive game in terms of outside of being like a spot up shooter, occasional roll man, pick and pop. Like he cannot score. He cannot dribble, which is
why
like
whenever he makes like long twos, the jokes are on the timeline where it's like, whoa, Maxey hit a bank shot.
And that's not like anything against him. It was more just like the fact that they depended on him so much.
Yeah,
just kind of exposed that part of his game. He talked about like his shooting and his willingness to shoot. Last season, he took 6 3-point attempts per 100 possessions, which is the lowest he's had since his rookie season. He's normally in the 7 to 8 range, and he was at 6. Like when he passes up shots, that makes things a lot harder for this Mavericks offense. So they need him to shoot when he's open, and then hopefully the reinforcements that they made the rest of the roster means they just don't have to rely on him so much, and they can keep him as fresh as possible.
Yep. So his season preview, and these are we're talking about guys as they've been written about on MavsMoneyball.com. We already have 6 or 7 up. We're rolling out our kind of off-season stuff inch by inch. We really kick off on October 1st because that's when our boss at SB Nation really starts to crack down on us. So we'll have more stuff there, but we've been rolling these out as sort of test runs. And, all you can find written, at least 500 to 600 words on every one of these guys up on Mavs Moneyball. The next guy that I wanted to talk about was Dereck Lively II. And we've already touched base on him a little bit earlier in the show. I don't have a ton to add to what we've already talked about, other than I am very excited to see what he can do in specific offensive situations, short roll situations, if they have taught him how to screen at all this summer. Defensively is where he's going to make his chops, but I don't know. He says all the right things about being a roll man, and that just it makes me happy because he's incredibly athletic, has a huge standing reach, and he seems to really want to do the right things for this team. So it's like I don't have much to add past what we've talked about all off season long. I'm really excited to talk about or to watch him play basketball.
Yeah, and it's interesting because his player archetype, doesn't necessarily get picked at that high of a range in the draft, 12th. But he just has everything theoretically that the Mavericks need. So they just need to throw him out there and see what happens. His foul trouble is probably going to hurt early on, but man, it's just going to be fun to watch them have big athletic dudes on the roster for the first time in like forever. Like the 2019, 2020, 2021 teams were so floor bound, and that was such a big deal. To see them have these kind of athletes is going to be just a lot of fun. Even if the thing people have to understand is Lively's going to make mistakes. He's going to be inconsistent, but he's going to have some there's going to be some really fun moments. So try to take the good with the bad and don't let it get you too down when he struggles, because that's part of the process.
My advice to the guy is have your hands ready, because one of the things, watching Luka Doncic in the World Cup, and you just forget this unless you're watching him night after night. Luka has the ability to put bullet curving on the ball and find players right in the hands, right where you can put it in the breadbasket. And he's turned Dwight Powell into Zach Lowe had some hilarious comments about him. It's just like he's a zombie. He's unkillable, meaning Dwight Powell. And if you can make Dwight Powell an indispensable part of the Mavericks, then a guy with this kind of athleticism, and we've said it before, but these have been different players in Lively. Lively could get 6 free points a game just by playing hard and playing with Luka. I can't, without rambling, I can't speak highly enough for this. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to circle back to them if we have time, guys. Guys, I see them. We're just trying to stick to our scripts. So we're not talking here forever. The next guy to talk about is somebody else we'll be a little bit brief on. Markieff Morris. Don't really understand this one, but he is essentially the 15th man. And he has a lightly guaranteed, partially guaranteed contract. I wouldn't be shocked if he is on the team the whole season. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not on the team in November. The Mavericks still have a little bit of their mid-level exception. And if he's the very likely cut candidate for a variety of reasons. he doesn't bring anything this team needs. He's a fake tough guy. And he can't shoot. I don't really know what he does. I don't know what he does. This is other than a veteran. Like, he's just Sure. What does he do?
Yeah, not sure. Maybe he has some relationships with guys on the team, so we don't know that. So we'll see.
That could be good.
You never know. He has been in the league a while, and there are young guys on this team, so he can be there to answer questions that they have. That that always helps. But he's not going to play. So there's really not that much for us to talk about. He's going to be he's not even a break glass in case of emergency guy. Like Powell.
There's
Maxey,
a lot of forwards in front of him.
Yeah. Powell, Maxey, Lively, Jones, Williams, Prosper. There's a ton of guys that are going to play before him. So there would have to be a lot of injuries for him to play. So things would have to go very, very bad. So we'll see. And I'm with you. I don't even know if he'll be on the roster when opening day.
They've got a couple of very interesting training camp guys that I think is going to be, it's going to be tough for them to basically say, I don't know if we want like Greg. Like it goes both ways. It just sort of depends on what the team thinks they need. Like there's a question in the chat: would you take Theo or Morris? For me, I would take Morris 10 times out of 10. That's how much I am not a Theo guy.
He's at least he's been an NBA player,
right? He's been an NBA player. But you never know with these training camp guys. It's how much youth do they really want on the team? I've been thinking about that for a while, and they're gotta trust. I gotta trust that they know what they're doing, because I have no other choice. So maybe Morris will be on the team. Doyle wrote up a shockingly good preview about that, considering what we have to talk about in terms of a guy like Morris, where we don't really know much about what his role will be. Now, here's the next two are probably the two of the most interesting guys we could talk about all preseason, and I probably shouldn't have grouped them together. This is on me. Jaden Hardy. We just haven't talked about him a lot because I think he might be the odd man out unless they move on from either him or Josh. I think it's him or Josh, as unfortunate as that is.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with him because the Mavericks were a guard-heavy team last season in terms of like their rotation. And they signed 2 more guards in the offseason, Seth Curry and Dante Exum. And Exum is a bit more of a wild card kind of guy. But Curry, like, I would absolutely think he's higher on the totem pole than Jaden. But with Curry's injury history and health history, maybe that works itself out. And maybe Jaden finds his time there. But you're talking about Luka and Kyrie are your starters. Then you got THJ, you've got Curry, you have Exum, who is more of a veteran. I don't know how much more reliable he is since he has been out of the league for a couple of years. So when push comes to shove, are you going to play the younger offensive-minded guard when this team needs defense and Luka and Kyrie are going to be playing most of the minutes at guard anyway? Jaden didn't really get a chance to play last season until both Luka and Kyrie got banged up a little bit, and the season kind of slipped away, and they kind of had to go to him because it was like, all right, well, what else are we going to do? If things are going right, I could see a scenario where he's not part of the rotation because Seth and Exum are giving Kid the things he needs, and THJ is going to be on the roster and he needs his minutes, and Luka and Kyrie are going to both be over 30, and it's like, where do the minutes come from? So that's not a knock against him because I think he surprised a lot of people. Yeah. He was the 37th pick. He was awful in the G League before he got drafted. The fact that he was able to do what he did his rookie season, I think, was a huge, huge win. I will admit I'm a little concerned that he basically looked like the same, like both of his summer leagues looked almost the exact same way. And that it was a little, I don't know how to say this because people are going to kill me like caring about summer league, but the fact that he didn't look that much more improved in summer league and struggled to get by guys, like that stuck with me a little bit.
That's been the quiet consensus amongst the Mavs fan group chats that I'm in, where the Mavericks gave him a chance to do something more and he didn't. Now, that doesn't really matter if you're happy with him playing the slashing scoring role where he takes one dribble, takes a shot. That's fine. And I'm actually quite fine with that. Where I think, and I hope he gets a chance, is he really has a great frame. He's really long. You know, I often talk about how Josh Green is small. Like Josh Green and Jaden Hardy are not like wingspan wise, maybe like body build. Green is a lot thicker, but Hardy has a great frame. I would like to see Hardy get a chance to play some defense and see if he's improved there. I didn't think he was bad last year, but it's like that's what makes your bones for kid is if you can defend any. I just don't think he's going to get that many chances. You know, then again, Kyrie's over 30. You know, Tim's over 30. Seth, I feel like Seth Curry is like 45 with his injuries. So it's, you know, it's not that I just think it's out. Yeah. And there's a couple of people that have talked about this where it's just early on in the season, I think we collectively are going to be frustrated that they don't have more opportunities for him. So,
yeah. Yeah. And also like this roster isn't set necessarily. There are some big NBA moves in the pipeline that the Mavericks, we don't know, but could get involved in. So maybe THJ isn't around to sop up some of those minutes and they need to play Hardy, or maybe Hardy is on another team. Like, I mean, when you've got Luka and Kyrie and you're invested in that, like, let's be honest, Hardy is a luxury because Luka and Kyrie are the ones, which is great. And it's great that they found him with 37th pick, but you know, we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah. So he's going to be one to watch. He really came on in the fourth quarter of the season last year. He's just kind of become a bit of an afterthought, and I would be delighted if he forces his way into more minutes by playing really well. That would be something. All right. Last but not least, I have fully converted to the Church of Olivier Maxence Prosper. And the more I think about him, the more excited I get. And I don't have reasonable expectations. I need people to tell me to shut up because I think he is going to be, I made the probably ridiculous proclamation that I think he's going to be on like the all rookie first team this year.
That's pretty crazy because this is a pretty good rookie class. First, you think he's first team?
I think if the Mavericks are good, they are going to reward the Mavericks in various ways in awards, and he will be part of why they're good.
Man, so
the numbers might not be there, but let me go look up Josh Howard's ball references.
I'm just saying because there's 5 guys on the first team all rookie, and it's a positionless. The rookie team's positionless, so it's just the best 5 guys. So you're saying if he's on there, then one of Jarris Walker, Anthony Black, Sir Thompson.
First of all, he put Jarris Walker in prison.
He did
in summer league. So I just can't shake that.
That was really fun to watch.
It's Josh Howard, and I don't think Josh Howard made any further, but Josh Howard's rookie stats, he played 67 games. He averaged 8.5 points and 5.5 rebounds. Okay. That's where there's just him being big is going to matter. It's just going to matter. That's sort of where I see, Coops in the chat says, can we see the Mavericks using Omax similar to how the Pelicans use Herb Jones in his rookie year? I don't know. I hope. I really just want to see it. I want to see him play. I want to see what he's capable of. Summer League, he played with such obnoxious swagger. I want to see that. It was fucking awesome. I love being excited for young guys. I've been disappointed for so many young guys over the years. Like Jalen Brunson was so bad that rookie, his summer league, his first year, and Luka didn't play. I've been to summer league so many times, and this was like the only time where I was like, "This is awesome."
Yeah, and then with Prosper, like the idea of like he's not a freshman, so he wasn't a freshman last year. Was he a junior? So he's like, what, 21? So he's a little bit older. And we've seen the guys that are a little bit older potentially translate a little bit faster. Shout out to Desmond Bane forever. So he's a little bit more mature, both physically and mentally compared to other rookies because he's not, 19 years old. So that helps. And then again, his position not only do the Mavericks not have a lot of blockers for big wings, but also the responsibility when you're playing with Luka is just shoot the open shots you're going to get.
Catch the ball when you go to the rim. Dunk the ball when you go to the rim.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, he could be a lot of fun because they need both. If Lively and Prosper can if they can be legitimate NBA starters by, year 2, year 3, or whenever it happens, so that's going to set this franchise up for a lot of good things down the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm off my rocker about him, but I think everyone should join me on this because I'm never this excited about anything. Like the last player I was this kind of like, holy shit, this is awesome about, his name was Luka Doncic. So it's been 5 years since I've been really, oh my God, this is great. It's not like they've had that many rookies over that time, but I love developmental basketball, and the Mavericks just haven't been invested in young guys the entire time. I've been a really, Devin Harris, Josh Green, like it was 15 years ago. then it's like, Dennis, then we had to wait for Dennis Smith and then Luka. I love young guys. It's fun. It's really fun to project. And I don't know why I'm really like I'm dying on the hill of a guy picked 24th. But hey,
Josh Howard was 30.
That was because he smoked weed. And that's bad. God, that was so stupid.
Also, he was a senior too, so I think people thought he was,
ACC
and that
player
stuff was
of the year, though. That 2003 draft is fucking ridiculous when you go look through it.
It really is.
It's just so crazy.
It really is.
I remember I was watching that. I was in Washington, D.C., I think, watching the draft with my then girlfriend, who is now my wife. God, long time ago. So we'll probably go a little more in depth on other players when we're talking about them. There's a Luka preview up, but I didn't want, Luka's almost a podcast into himself. And I really want to see what he has to say at Media Day. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week.
He's also going to talk tomorrow.
I can't wait to see how he filibusters. Because there was a question.
Does he ever filibuster? He's pretty short and sweet. Yeah.
That's what I really mean. And there was somebody, I'm scrolling through to look for it. I should have flagged it. I'm sorry. Somebody asked if we could address Luka's injury. Here it is. Div X-Ray asked this question. Could you talk about Luka's injuries? I don't know how to, because I don't know what his injury is. He has a thigh.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of, Josh and I get stuck in the grind sometimes. And he got hurt against the Pelicans twice in 30 days. First, he hurt his heel on his, and if this is a throwback reference, does anybody remember the Kevin Bacon movie, The Air Up There? Luka tried to do a dunk and missed horribly and came down on his heel and hurt his heel. And then and I forgot about the thigh injury. Luka, the way he plays football, or he plays basketball like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, where he's going to get hit in the thigh. He needs to either start wearing like legitimate thigh padding or something, because he's like, these sorts of things aren't going to go away. It's just part of the way when you drive as much as he does. It's really crazy. So I don't know what his injury is, other than the fact that he mentioned it at the World Cup that his thigh hurt, and that's alarming. I don't want to be, oh no, I didn't really even write about it in my preview because I don't know enough. But for him to make a comment in that regard concerns me, and I hope it works out.
Yeah, and we'll get that clarity tomorrow, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, so schedule-wise, I am really actually, swear to God, this time going to try to host a Friday podcast. I have been very bad about that. My new boss keeps calling me at obscure times. I need to just be honest with him and tell him that I do this stuff. I don't think he'll really care because I work all the time anyways. I got a question from Michael Rowe that I'm going to wait to start that show with on Friday, because I think that'll be a good sort of start. The good news, Coop says the good news is that they finally found it on an MRI. Well, what did they find? Like just like a deep thigh bruise on Luka? I mean, that's kind of what I assume, because when I was a senior on my basketball team got dead legged real hard, and the dude was not the same the rest of the year. Like he thought it was like one of these bizarre, because I mean, your thigh and your quad muscle is enormous. So it's not shocking that Luka's hurt. Anyways. So yeah, be looking for that. Remember, guys, the live show that I like to host is one of these deals where I want you to come up here and join Josh and I. The link is I post it in the YouTube comments, and then you click on that link, go to a waiting room, and then I bring you up on stage. We used to do this last year all the time, post game in the what was then the Spotify green room. And now we do, and then Spotify Live. Well, it's locker room, Spotify green room, then Spotify Live, which then Spotify dead. So now we're here on YouTube at some people's request. You don't have to show your face, but I will say we're all just fans talking hoop, and it is fun. And I would appreciate it if you joined the show and, you know, got your takes off. We're going to have a lot to talk about by Friday afternoon because Friday's media day.
There we go. Can't wait.
All right. Firm hour from Josh and I would say we have other stuff to talk about, but we don't. I'm going to post this stuff on Mavs Moneyball, and I'm going to go watch Ahsoka. What are you going to do for the rest of the evening?
Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Blast from the past. You remember the game Portal from 2007?
Outstanding game.
I just beat it for the first time ever earlier this afternoon.
Had you seen the end credits?
Yes, with the song.
Yeah. That was Lisa, one of our throwback editors, LJ, for long-term Mavs Moneyball fans. She somehow knew all of the words to that song. I don't know why. So I think of her whenever I think about that song. It's a great game. Incredible game.
20 years late. I don't know how I didn't play it until just now, but I did.
No, the orange box, the whole, all that Half-Life stuff, it holds up. I keep, every time I get a chance to play Starfield lately, I've been going back to Breath of the Wild because Starfield is making me anxious. But I need to get into the grind. Like I watched some video today of a guy playing, like he had built a city, not like a settlement in Fallout 4, a city. And he was like, yeah, I spent 200 hours doing this. And I'm like, 200 what? It's just, I wish, you know, I wish to be independently wealthy so I could play video games all day. That's what I would like. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. Please remember to subscribe and like and leave comments. I love seeing comments. I come and check them after every show. Josh doesn't have, so I do that so Josh doesn't have to. We will be back on Friday. Please visit MavsMoneyball.com. Thank you so much for your support, and we will talk to you a little later in the week. Go Mavs.